The question right here is really, FedRamp has been issued, it's out there, and so what key role do you see FedRamp playing in driving security standards? And do you really think it's going to change the way that the cloud is secured, procured in the federal government space?
Sure. So FedRamp is an excellent launch. I mean, this has been highly anticipated. NIST has been working on these standards for a long time. And just if you saw the announcement last month in December, this was made like a mandatory for all the federal agency by the OMB. So FedRamp, Federal Risk Authorization Management Program. Now, the problem that it solves is, up till now, the agencies have been doing duplicative work, right? So if I have an IT system I'm buying, I go there and certify and do the risk assessment, security assessment, monitoring, and then if somebody at some other agency wants to buy the same system, they have to go through the same process. So it is definitely inefficient. It costs us a lot of money, a lot of manpower, and it is not something we can scale with. So what FedRamp is bringing to the table is like, okay, here's a baseline, and it is actually a NIST SP 800-53. It's the set of all the best practices in risk assessment and security assessment, enhanced for the cloud computing environment. It has been packaged together and saying, here are the best practices and baselines. So there are third-party accredited the certifying agencies or certifying companies that will go through the assessment, and everybody can be on the same page, like, hey, if it has gone through FedRamp, I can be assured like it at least meets the baseline security standards, right? So definitely it is going to increase the cloud adoption. It is going to speed up the cloud adoption, and there will be peace of mind when companies and agencies are going through this process, like, okay, I know it at least meets the baseline set by NIST. And again, we need more of this. Again, this is just the starting point. I mean, this is going to help us with security assessment, risk assessment. It is do it once and use it multiple times across the board.
Great, thank you. Henry, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I would just say that it can be a challenge with programs like FedRamp is doing really cool stuff. NIST is making creating some standards that people are really excited that these things are being brought to bear, and I think that companies are creating product around that. I think one of the challenges is that most government agencies today don't take a bare minimum standard approach for most of the things they do. They have a lot of processes beyond that where they customize their environment. So what I face a lot is you'll come in and talk about a compliant offering or a standard offering, and they'll say, that's really great. That's awesome. Can you make it work with Remedy, because Remedy I'm stuck with? Or can you make it work with, in a heterogeneous environment? You're talking to me about something that, comes cloud in a box, but can you make it work with all of my different vendor stuff? Or can you put it in 27 different security zones and just make it work the same way it does when it sits by itself in a room? So this is the challenge, I think, with following sort of these standardization, putting these standards out there. They're good, but agencies still are going to continue to maintain their own stacks of compliance and the way they do business that are going to break a lot of the sort of standard.
So I'm going to pull on that thread a bit, okay, because that's a really outstanding point. What's the value proposition of cloud, right? It's the fact that everything is rigorously standardized, ruthlessly automated, so that you can repeatedly do the same thing over and over and over again, right? And if government's coming in and saying, that's really nice, but oh, by the way, modify it special for me, then we lose all the value proposition that's there,
and
right?
it's hard to make money for companies as well. If they're going to bring product to bear, they're not going to make money building one-offs for every customer. Yeah. So there's going to be a much more limited product set.
Curtis is over there nodding, smiling.
If you look at the back of this document here, the one thing that they say is shared cloud services with other federal agencies is part of my agency's mandate or mission. And there's a whole lot of not exactly sure, a whole bunch of strongly disagrees in here. Until we get over the hump of being able to share something, the economies of scale don't necessarily exist. Now, we understand in federal that we have our specific mandates and we have requirements that we have to meet, but in the next year, the ATOs and provisional ATOs that are required to get a multi-tenancy public cloud, or what I would call a private cloud offering services to multiple agencies coming online, it's going to happen. But then you have to be able to take that step along with them and understand what actually took place in the logical tier of a cloud to make you have that level of trust, which comes back to my point number 3.
It really
I
does.
think.
So I'm going to keep pulling this thread because I think this is a key issue here for the government, which is the fact that in order to get the advantages, you have to maybe take a different approach. So risk management seems to be the one that we're sort of circling around here, which is that, okay, I can get a whole lot of benefit from most of the public cloud offers, right? Most of them have good security practices and things like that that are in place. They wouldn't stay in business very long if they didn't, and those sorts of things like that, right? So Scott, from your perspective, right, if you look at it as a risk management question, is it worth government going in and saying modify special just for me? Or conversely, is there a better engagement model that we might do with the private sector that we could do some measure of risk management so that we can really leverage the economies of scale that matter?
Well, I think agencies should start by really digging into some of the FedRamp controls and understanding exactly where the baselines are, because there has been input from DoD, civilian government leadership, and there has been a lot of work put into that. And I know there is still active, what I would call executive leadership with the Joint Authorization Board that will increase or modify where it's necessary, because it's a win-win for both industry and the government where we can be following those baselines. If we have to keep doing incrementally one-offs, agency by application, then we really haven't solved that problem.
We don't have a cloud.
You don't have a cloud.
Right.
And then the benefits of being able to reuse the ATOs or provisional ATOs that come through the trusted third-party organizations, the accreditation organizations, that'll also be solving part of the problem today. Rather than an agency trying to trust another agency's process, there's a trusted third party that's certified that should be providing the guarantee that those controls have been met and implemented. So you first have to get yourself comfortable with the controls and then those third-party organizations, which is a different operating model than what we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Prem, you started, but I'll let you close the final comment on FedRamp. Do you see the FedRamp requirements actually making their way into cloud standard offerings, even in the commercial sector? Because if it improves security for the government and makes us more comfortable, would it not do the same thing for those businesses who also have to deal with sensitive information and have sensitive things that they want to be able to do?
Sure. So talking about sensitive data, I would like to elaborate on what Jim mentioned earlier, Department of Labor, right? Let's take an example. They have put the entire financial management system in the cloud. It's all software as a service, right? And they were using a 25-year-old legacy COBOL financial management system on mainframe. And now they have migrated everything to a brand new Oracle Financials Release 12, right? So, and how are they feeling secure? Because they, again, the service provider or the software as a service provider who's providing this service to the Department of Labor, which is again a big aggregation of 12 different agencies within that, Bureau of Labor Statistics, ETA, all having separate requirements. They all need data segregated. I mean, it's not one agency. It's a congregation of so many different agencies. But they are feeling secure because the software as a service provider is following certain standards, right? They are NIST, they are FISMA moderate, they follow SAS 70. I mean, they have all those things that are required as an ATO. Right, and that is one of the reasons you see not only Department of Labor but EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They were operating out of the Department of Interior's NBC, and they were increasing. They were seeing their the costs go up 25% year over year, and now they are also using a similar model to put financial records into the cloud. And if you look at health and human services, they have put electronic health records in the Salesforce kind of a cloud, right? I mean, there are so many examples on the positive side. And if you see the negative side, there is, I just read an announcement about the Los Angeles Police Department. They actually canceled a contract with Google after 2 years of implementation. They said, no, we don't feel it is secure enough. Right? I mean, but again, to begin with, the proper due diligence was not done. Maybe that data that they were trying to put in the public cloud was never meant to be for a public cloud. It was so sensitive data that it should have been a private cloud, right? I mean, going back to your question, FedRamp is a measure in that direction to help the agencies, at least give them baseline, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly like that, but at least it's peace of mind that look, I am secure to this extent. After that, you can put additional controls depending on how sensitive your data is.
Great.